Remember Pat Robertson? You might not actually. If you're young, if you live in certain parts of the country, you might not know who he is, but he's sort of a big deal for the Christian right. And it's sort of I don't know, like a touchstone of TYT that they used to talk about him a lot when he was even more significant culturally. But he was an interesting figure because he was almost always wrong and awful on the substance, but every once in a while would have a bit of empathy. And I think we've got a case of this here where Pat Robertson and his co-host talking about the killing of Daunte Wright. And I want you to take a look at this as they talk about like the facts of the story as they were revealed to us.
Also, I want to say, I think a lot of people are thinking like I was, that both the gun and the taser would be put on your dominant side, but it's not that way.
They have to cross where they have them different.
So you actually have to reach across yourself to get
feel the difference. I mean,
it's definitely
there's just no comparison. As I say, they're not making tasers in this yellow color anymore. They're making in black. They're making them yellow. Now, how she made the difference was she shot that poor guy to death, saying, "This is what I thought. I thought was my taser." And if you can't tell the difference in the feel of those things, it's crazy.
So, Brett, I want to give him credit for doing the comparison at all, which is more than we would get out of the vast majority of right-wing media. It's an inconvenient thing to try to get into the head of how you could make that mistake. And I understand that at the end of the day is the most important part of what happened clearly, but he at least cared enough to do it and produced a weird image of Pat Robertson holding simultaneously like a Kimbo taser and gun, which I never thought I would have seen. But what do you think? I know that you're a little bit more familiar with Pat Robertson than some.
I didn't know the Pat Robertson player could dual wield. I didn't know that was a possibility with that. that skin or whatever, the very droopy skin of. I would just say for people on the right, this is just like the most difficult demonstration to avoid the temptation, because usually the default setting is how can I hold as many lethal weapons as possible at once, and then be like, so we have this segment we can do where you can have a gun and a taser, and they're like, go on. But you'll have to conclude that they're basically the same thing. It's just like, oh God.
I want to hold it.
Order them, bring them here, but we won't. We'll shoot it. We'll film it, but we won't air it. But please just leave them here. And how many days do we have this? You have to get all the charges, like all that stuff.
He did the right thing here. He is saying, I don't understand how you could confuse these things, which I think maybe I'm in a bubble. I don't know. I think that's the only reasonable conclusion, honestly.
Yeah,
but anyway, yeah. More important than that, we'll do our commentary, but let me give you sort of his conclusion, which I would not have expected he would have come to.
Pro-police, folks. I think we need the police. We need their servants, and they do a good job. But if they don't stop this onslaught, they cannot do this. The police in Virginia picked up a lieutenant in the Army and began to give him trouble. And our state police are highly trained. But why they don't stop this? And this thing is going on in Minnesota, but the Derek Chauvin, I mean, they ought to put him under the jail. He has caused so much trouble by kneeling on the death of George Floyd. It's just, on his neck. It's just terrible what's happening. And the police, why don't they open their eyes to what the public relations are? They've got to stop this stuff.
Maybe they need more training.
Now, Brett, there are some issues with that perhaps we can touch on, but overall, he seems to have a mix of a bit of empathy, a bit of shock that people could act the way they do, with a bit of like, I guess, sort of pragmatic PR advice for cops. Like it was kind of stop doing this because it looks really bad for you, but there was empathy there too. It's a mix of a few different things.
And it's not a crazy conclusion. We shouldn't do this. The crazy conclusion is what we heard at the end from the co-host. The co-host is saying maybe they need more training. The word more is, I think, where everybody doesn't realize they're wrong. Let's say this is gonna be a terrible analogy, but like, let's say you're making soup and you put salt in it. You put too much salt in it.
Mm-hmm.
The cure for it isn't more salt.
I think you're supposed to put a potato in there.
Supposed to put a potato in there. You're supposed to counteract it. You're supposed to actually put something in there to take it out. You have to fix it. You have to fix it. You can't just do more of the thing. A lot of people say, well, they should have more training. No. They need to change the way that they train people.
Yes.
And that's very frustrating. But
that's not a bad analogy. I was worried at first, but that's
right,
not that bad.
Right. Well, it's just because I'm comparing police brutality to soup, I think is where we've really identified this all breaks down.
That's probably it.
But it's just a way of getting people to think about it differently. You're not gonna keep doing the thing that's wrong about it. Especially because the woman who shot Daunte Wright was a training officer. The guy who accosted the veteran who accosted a black man walking around a neighborhood on the street was a drill sergeant.
Yeah,
in South Carolina. Like these folks are the training sometimes. And so maybe that can reveal to you that they're doing it wrong. And for Pat Robertson to say, listen, you can't keep doing this. Pat Robertson, it's weird. Maybe he's just been doing his own little show for long enough where he hasn't paid attention to the ways in which mainstream media has completely lost it. And has just decided we're just gonna be hyperbolic. We don't care about being consistent. We're gonna be 100% hypocritical at all times. But even Pat Robertson's just like, I'm just looking at the facts of the matter, and they seem to be bad for cops who were shooting and killing people or kneeling on their necks like that. Like, it's Pat Robertson. He's just kind of, he can't help but notice reality.
Sure. Yeah, and look, I am by no means the person to ask about what relevance, if any, or where he has over the right. I don't know. I don't know even for like really religious right wingers. I doubt he's super mainstream, but hey, we'll take the help wherever we can. If he is a thought leader for some people, him trying to inject a little bit of empathy and I would say consistency with the rest of their value system when it comes to this sort of thing, that's a good thing. I'll take it. And with this new woke Pat Robertson, we want to welcome him to the club. Francesca started it actually on Twitter saying, welcome to Antifa, Pat Robertson, snacks to your left. And yeah, so he's gonna be at the meetings. He's a little bit weird, but he's still trying to evolve. So let's be welcoming. He's actually generally pretty awful. And I'm sure tomorrow he's gonna say awful stuff. So bear that in mind.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.